My brother and I shared the same bedroom until I was 10. We lived in a Cape Cod that was built in 1930. And as the years went on, my parents had added to it. But when I was 10, they said I could have my own room. And so I was moved downstairs. And the room I was given was what we had used as the TV room. My father believed that the living room was where you entertained people, where you read the paper. You certainly did not have a television in the living room. So we had a separate TV room, which now became my room. This room was right off our dining room. Now the dining room was set up so that when you sat at the table, my back was actually to my bedroom. My father was to my left, with a window behind him, facing west. My mother was near the kitchen door. My brother sat right across from me. Our collie, whose name was Lassie, I got to name it when I was 4. And if Timmy and Jeff can have a dog named Lassie, I can have a dog named Lassie. Anyway, she laid by my chair. It wasn't because she loved me best. It's just that I seemed to have more of my food land on the floor than anyone else. Anyway, when you turned around and looked at my room, when you opened the doors, and there were 2 doors, on the right-hand side was my bed, on the western side. On the eastern side, to my left, was a desk that my mom and dad had built me, which was really an old door with 2 3-drawer cabinets at each end. Now, I say my mom and dad, but really, it was my mom. My dad was a lawyer. He was a good one. He even got a woman off for having drugs, but the police had left the book that the drugs were in the back of the police car, and it was only for a couple of minutes, but there was something called chain of custody. But anyway, she got off. But to ask him to use his hands, we went to Mom. She was the Navy nurse. She built things. She fixed things. That's who built my desk. She also put up the wallpaper, because this was my room, and what they allowed me to do was decide how I wanted it to look. They gave me a golden carpet. I guess today you'd call it camel. The walls were a faux wood paneling. I didn't get real wood paneling, but it was wallpaper that looked like wood paneling, which was okay. I liked it. And if you go back to the door, looking in, just to the left of the door was my gun rack. And on there I had my Daisy BB gun, I had a Winchester BB gun, and later as I got older I had a bolt-action 22. Now, it's interesting, back in the day, no one thought anything about a boy having a gun rack with guns on it. And funny thing is, we didn't shoot ourselves either, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, in the room there was also a heating duct, and what I learned later, there was another duct where the fresh air would come in so that the air would be circulating. Well, what I noticed was that although the heating duct was screwed down, the air duct, which was just on the other side of my bed, wasn't. You could take it off. And when I took it off, I realized that I basically had a 12-inch by almost 12-inch hole that would go down 2 feet and then take a hard right. What this meant was I had a special secret hiding place. I could keep things there that were out of anybody's eyesight, including my parents and my little brother. And so, as I got older, I used to store things there. And I had a pack of cigarettes, a can of beer, and my Playboy collection, because no one could see it. Now, I came home, and remember, I moved into there when I was 10, but I was about 15, I was a sophomore, I was coming back from lacrosse practice. I bounded into the kitchen, which I was wont to do. I always bound, I didn't walk. And my mother said, "Rick, I'd like to see you in the living room." Now, immediately I said to myself, what does she know? And there were really too many things that she could possibly know, and I had no clue as to what it could be. So I went into the living room, and she was sitting on the couch, and she said, "Take a seat over there." And that was my father's seat where he always sat on Sundays reading the Sunday New York Times. So I sat there. And she didn't look mean. She didn't look mad. She didn't look angry. But with a rather straight face, she said, "You know, we had a problem with the furnace today." And the furnace man came and he fixed the furnace and he suggested that I clean all the air ducts in the house. And so that's what I did, including the one in your room. Now, you have to understand, I'm a 15-year-old boy. And I'm sitting in front of my mother, who's now telling me that she found my Playboy collection. The cigarettes, I can handle punishment. The beer, all right, I could be in serious trouble. But the Playboy collection? My mother? I'm 15. I wanted to be anywhere else but where I was sitting. And even if I closed my eyes and I still opened them, she was there staring at me. And she said, "Rick, I'm not mad, I'm concerned." She said, "The women in Playboy really aren't the way women look. And I'm afraid that you're going to be confused or disappointed." I just wanted to curl up and die. I mean, you gotta be kidding. I'm 15. My mother's now talking about this. And she said, "That's all I had to say. I have to go fix dinner." And she got up and walked out of the living room. Now, I honestly don't remember walking back to my room, but I did. And I went over to the air duct, and it's something she had said. She said she put it all back. She said I dusted it and I put it back. So I went back and I looked in the air duct, and sure enough, there was a pack of cigarettes, and there were all my Playboys. Now, the can of beer was gone, but I wasn't going to raise the issue. We're not saying a word. And that was all that was said. Now, years passed. I got married. I went to a conference. It was a law conference. I was giving a presentation, and it was in Las Vegas. And as I was wont to do, I would call my mother when I traveled, because she was always concerned, as I'd call my wife, and then I'd call my mother and say, "This is what we're doing." And I called her and I said, "You know, Mom, I'm at a law conference. Things are going really well, but do you remember that conversation we had when I was 15 about women and how they looked and how they really looked in Playboy?" And she went, "Yes, I certainly do." I said, "Well, you know, I found out where they live. Vegas."